welcome to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl. Just a reminder, this show is about transformation. Transformation in wealth on all levels, whether it's money, assets, relationships, or spirituality, or love. It's time to wake up and save our humanity and planet. We have a brave and special guest this evening, Kim Ireland. Originally from Rhode Island, he graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from Clarkson College, Clarkson University in Potsdam, New York in 1963. Kim served as an officer in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for 2.5 years in Heidelberg, Germany. He met his Norwegian wife while stationed in Heidelberg. Kim worked for Union Carbide Corporation in their chemical division for 6 years, and then formed a small chemical specialty company and sold it after 15 years. Kim has worked in different entrepreneurial capacities over the last 20+ years in environmental and holistic health arena. Kim is an active participant in Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth since 2009. Kim has studied and experienced what is called disaster capitalism. The topic for which we are discussing tonight will be, or may be, controversial, but then he has researched and professional experience with chemicals. Too much control and greed in the wrong hands. When the power mongers are playing God and controlling the weather with chemicals, this has gone too far. And we have to take a hard look at this and then plan for a solution. And the solution starts with education. This is part 1 of part 2 of a 2-part series with Kim. Before we start our show, I came across this interview with Warren Buffett that I would like to share as an intro to capitalism from his perspective.
Are you always right, or do you make mistakes?
No, we make mistakes. It wouldn't be any fun if we didn't make mistakes. I mean, if I went out and played golf and every one of the 18 holes I hit a hole in one, I wouldn't be playing golf for very long. I mean, you have to go into the rough occasionally to make the game interesting. Not too often, though. What money is claim checks. It's a claim check on the output of others in the future. If I have a pile of dollar bills, or if I have a pile of stock certificates or a pile of bonds, those represent claim checks which I, or a charity, or my descendants, or my spouse, or whomever can use to exchange for the goods and services produced by others. Somebody else will work for that. I can hire now, if I wanted to, I could hire thousands of people to sit every day and paint my portrait. You know, and they would be employed, and I could use these claim checks, and I could look for the perfect portrait of myself. I would never find it because I don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I could keep looking for the guy that would try and make me look that way, and I could keep handing out these claim checks, and I would command that person's services the rest of their life. They wouldn't do anything else for society at all. And, you know, or I could build myself a wonderful pyramid. I could say, you know, why should people have to go to Egypt to see one of these things? So I'll spend all of these claim checks I've got and just have thousands of people. We'll have them in loincloths and, you know, like the original cast in Cecil B. DeMille production, and they'll haul these blocks of granite. We'll build a pyramid and make people forget all about Egypt. And that would command the services of other people. So money will let you can exchange these little pieces of paper for other people's goods and services in the future. And the wisdom with which you do that, or your own proclivities, you know, depends very much on the individual. And some people build pyramids, and I hope other people engage in cancer research. My family and I have had everything we could possibly need, you know, for the last 50 years, but also 50 years ago that my wife and I decided that beyond taking care of ourselves, that there was no reason to set it up so that the next 25 generations of little Buffett kids could keep using these claim checks, so they didn't have to do anything to contribute to society, and that there were better uses for those claim checks, and that one way or another the money was going to go back to society. And now, you know, philanthropy is the logical way to do it. And the question is who would be best at using those claim checks to benefit 6 billion people around the world. And I've decided that the 5 foundations that I'm allocating the claim checks to will do a first-class job of that, and so far I'm very pleased about it. I think generally the keeping debt at a relatively within a range of GDP makes sense. I mean, I don't think you want debt to climb to 100% of GDP. I don't think you want to pay off the national debt. I think if the American worker were told by a politician 20 years from now that when he works 40 hours, that an hour and a half of that every week is going simply to service the debts incurred by the previous generation because they overconsumed, I think that he would say, I'm not interested in doing that anymore. I mean, let's take an extreme example. Let's say that back at the time of the Revolution, you know, we'd send somebody over to, say, King George, and he'd say, listen, this fight is hardly worth it. I mean, you're going to have a lot of people get killed. We're going to have a lot of people get killed. Why don't we just make a deal with you? We want our independence. We're kind of a pain in the neck anyway. So why don't we just give you 3% of our output forever, and you give us our freedom? Now, King George might like that, and the American colonists might like that. I mean, 3% of your output, we weren't producing that much anyway. It saves you going to war, maybe getting shot, killed, and everything else. So the first generation would say, it's a fair deal. 3% royalty to the English. We get our freedom. Nobody gets killed. The next generation might even be okay with this. My dad told me, you know, I escaped getting killed in the war, and so I'll give 3% of it. It wouldn't work now. If we were giving 3% of the output of the United States to England for freeing us 220 or whatever it might have been years ago, you know, something would have happened. You know, we'd have fought a war with them over it, or we'd have repudiated, something would have happened. You know, people just don't, at a point they say, to hell with it, you know, and countries have repudiated debts in the past. It's much easier just to inflate your way out of it. I mean, if I could finance all my own consumption today by handing out something called Warren bucks or Warren IOUs, and I had the power to determine the value of those IOUs over time, believe me, I would make sure that when I repaid them 10 or 20 years from now, that they were worth less, you know, per unit than they are today. So it's any company, any country that piles up external debt will have a great temptation to inflate over time, and that means that our currency relative to other major currencies is likely to depreciate over time, in my view. Well, there's enormous disparities in terms of how the benefits of the society been distributed, and the disparities have gotten wider, and our tax system has favored enormously the rich. I am now treated as sort of an endangered species by the government. They want to make sure nothing bad happens to me. So I get a tax rate of 15%, counting payroll taxes virtually, on a very large income. And the average American is paying a higher tax rate than I and most members of the Forbes 400 are paying if you count payroll taxes. I think it's a bad thing, but I think our tax system has gone very much awry in the last, particularly in the last 10 years. I mean, it wasn't this way 50 years ago. But even those on the low end are doing far better than people were, you know, the ones on the high end were doing 100 years ago. I mean, there are many, many things that a person earning a normal wage in this country can do and enjoy that John D. Rockefeller couldn't do and couldn't enjoy. So it's a rising tide has lifted the boats, but it's lifted the yachts a lot faster.
Welcome, Kim. I'm so glad that you could be here and come on my show.
Well, thank you, Cheryl.
Especially since I went to Good Earth right before Christmas to volunteer for an Anycast, and we were trying to get you to come on and do a greeting, and we started to engage in conversation, and you said, "Look up," and I'm thinking, why? So This is the reason I had you come on the show, is why was I looking up?
Well, thank you very much, Cheryl. Yeah, I have a habit of looking up at the sky, and this has been going on for me for about 8 years now, since I learned about this operation called geoengineering, which is actually a way of controlling the weather through spraying of chemicals from planes. And it's the word for the spray that's from the planes is normally identified as chemtrails. but it's also referred to as geoengineering, the whole field of controlling weather. So when I walked out of Good Earth, I looked up and I saw these chemtrails, huge chemtrails, making like an X formation right over Good Earth. And it just really frosts me when I see these.
Well, it was no mistake that you walked and met me or with Marin TV, because it's so important, because it's, as I'm learning, you know, with some of the links that you have sent me, disaster capitalism. And since my show is about healing that relationship with wealth, which is everything really in our life, not just money, but it's, you know, focusing in on the ones that are manipulating it to their benefit. So tell me what a contrail is versus a chemtrail.
Okay. Yeah, contrails are the natural white cloud trail that you see behind a high-flying jet aircraft. And this probably dates back to the, maybe the 1960s or 70s, when jets started flying at high altitudes and creating these contrails. And what it is, it's jet exhaust that is condensing into these clouds that we can see as a trail. And it has a unique way of forming, because it takes probably a plane length to actually form the trail, and then it dissipates after, maybe 30 to 90 seconds. That trail is gone because the moisture evaporates. So that's a normal contrail that we've seen for, you know, the last 40 or 50 years. But now what we're seeing over the last 10 to 15 years is another type of trail, and that's the chemtrail, that doesn't dissipate like the contrail does.
So the chemtrail is what you call chemical trail?
Yeah, chemtrail means, the name was actually coined by the Air Force, oddly enough, and it's the actual spraying of chemicals to achieve some objective with the weather. So you're trying to either dry out the atmosphere, or you're trying to do something, manipulate the atmosphere so that the weather will change in a way that you want it to change.
So do you think this is from the corporate environment or the government environment, you know, that are manipulating this?
Yeah, well, the patents that are on file are largely relate to the government operations. So the Air Force, for one, has been involved in this type of operation for a long time.
Why would they want to do this?
Well, as part of a mission to deny the enemy cover or this type of thing in military operations, they use the weather as part of their strategy in a
so it's like war. It's a warfare type thing. Okay, so why are they doing it here in Marin County?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. This is going on all over now. I've seen it for the last 8 years. I travel by a motorhome all over the West Coast. I've seen it predominantly inland as opposed to on the coast for some reason. But in the last month, it's been very heavy spraying here in Marin. I don't know what the reason is. One of the questions in my mind is if there's any connection between it and the drought that has been going on here for actually the last year.
So as far as that goes, I mean, what's the profitability for someone to do that?
Well,
you know, to manipulate to have a drought?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what the motive would be in a case like this, but I do know that one of the common elements or chemicals that's sprayed is aluminum, and aluminum oxide is a desiccant, so it tends to dry out the atmosphere. So I've noticed oftentimes when rain is on the forecast for a couple of days out, you'll start to see spraying coming in for that day or two before the forecasted rain, and then the rain doesn't happen. And I've seen that happen many, many times.
I don't understand that. Why are they doing? I mean, you shared with me Dr. Blaylock's website and his video, and he's a neurosurgeon who's done years of study on this particular subject.
Right.
And he was saying that the nano aluminum particles that are coming out of that create asthma and Alzheimer's and memory problems, but you can't see it, so no one's aware of it unless we bring it up like this and talk about it. That to me is man's inhumanity to man. Why are you doing this? You know, it's like there's a plot, a plan or something, you know, but there's got to be some material reason why they're doing it. You know, as far as money goes, you know, it's cost them a lot of money to do that.
Right, right. Yeah, unfortunately, that's not shared with us.
Well,
in actuality, this whole area is basically in denial. There have been requests made to the government to come forth and explain what they're doing, and basically they deny it. And probably what they're actually hiding behind is the military significance of it enables them to simply say that it's you know, it's a secret strategy and
but at the cost of our health. I mean, Dr. Blaylock says to how, you know, and thank you for sharing that video with me, that link, because he was saying that to use saffron and DHA to counteract the aluminum that we're breathing.
Right.
That's going into our system.
Right. Yeah, aluminum has been found to be a contributor to Alzheimer's as one of the big ones, and also to other mental disorders, particularly with children. And so, you know, if you look at the rate of increase in these diseases over the last 10 or 15 years, it pretty much tracks the increase in this spraying that's going on, also in agricultural applications as well. So it's something that we really need to pay attention to, and I would like to help your viewers tonight to understand a little bit of what they're looking for when they do look up. And this is what I would like to encourage people to do, is to, whenever you see a trail behind a plane, look up at that trail and try and determine for yourself whether it's a contrail, which is a legitimate exhaust trail behind all jets at high altitude, or whether it's a chemtrail, which is a spray plane that's in some kind of a spray operation.
See, it infuriates me to think that we're being used, I think you use the term like we're insects.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're being sprayed like insects. Out on the board here is just a simple plane that you're looking at in the sky as it's flying overhead. And I'm going to show you what a contrail looks like. And these have been happening for 40, 50, 60 years, as long as high-flying jets have been flying in the sky. So what you'll see behind this high-flying jet is you'll see a exhaust trail starting to form about a plane length behind the plane. So this distance from the start of the trail, the exhaust trail, to the plane, it's not here exactly a plane length, but it'll be about a plane length that you'll see. And then this will come together, this exhaust trail, and it will just form like a tail out here. And this will end up dissipating in about 30 to 90 seconds. And it may be as long as like 10 or 15 or 20 plane lengths, and then it just evaporates and disappears. Just like if you're up at Lake Tahoe and you're breathing on a cold day and you breathe out and you see like a little contrail coming out, and then bingo, it disappears. Same thing with the jet, okay? So this is what is a legitimate contrail from a jet, high-flying jet plane. Okay, now what we're here to talk about tonight is these lingering, what are called lingering contrails by some, but they're not actually lingering contrails, they're chemtrails. So we'll call them for what they are, chemtrails. And the big difference that we can see right away when we look up and we see a trail forming is we'll see the trail starting right at the wingtip of the plane. Usually it's right behind the first wing. And it doesn't have to be behind the engine. It's really hard to see at when these high-flying planes exactly where the engine is anyway. But it's coming right off the wingtip, either the front wingtip or the rear wingtip. Sometimes you see them coming off of here, okay? And they start coming out, and they'll be billowing, thick. Looks like smoke. And then several, maybe a ways behind the plane, you'll see them start to spread out, and they form like ropes. Curlicues start to form. On both sides, you'll see them. Like this. This is actually they start to disperse. And these are formed by the pulsing of the pump in the plane that's actually pumping out this material that is forming the chemtrail. And you never see this in a contrail because it's just from the jet engine revolution, which is thousands of revolutions per minute, versus here the revolutions are much slower. So you can actually see the definition, and this is one of the real identifying characteristics of the chemtrails that you will see. And the other is that it starts right from the plane, because these do not have to condense in the same way as a contrail does. It's a material that's being sprayed. I think most of the time it's actually a powder. It can also be a liquid. But obviously aluminum powder is a material that does form a color. It's white. From that standpoint, it looks similar to a contrail, but that's the only way it looks similar. So these are the chemtrails. They'll spread out for different distances. It may last the entire day. It may last an hour. I don't know why they last those different lengths of time. It could be different materials, or it could be different atmospheric conditions. We don't know all the details on these chemtrails, but it's obvious when you look up that you can see the difference. And then you'll also notice in the atmosphere that there will be a haze, oftentimes for a day or two following the spray operations, you'll see a haze in the air that is uncharacteristic for the area, particularly here in the San Francisco and Marin area, where we have very little air pollution, and we'll end up with a haze and it'll look like Los Angeles. So these are some of the things that you can look for on the chemtrails when you're trying to spot them and show your friends and family what's happening. I think this is very, very important that we get a grip on what these things are, that it's real, and that we need to do something about it.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much
Cheryl,
for being
the
here
opportunity
and
to come on and
yeah.
and share with your viewers my experiences.
I'll leave you with this. Never give up on your purpose and passion. Work with integrity and have a positive attitude wherever you work, and please, first and foremost, with your family and friends, be grateful for what you have, who you are, and where you have come from, and be grateful for your freedom. And eat healthy. Good nutrition feeds the mind and your body temple. Don't forget to keep moving your body by working out. Feed your spirituality with meditation and prayer. With unconditional love. Love yourself unconditionally and share your abundance and wealth with others. Thanks for watching. When fear knocks, let faith answer the door. Money is like love. It kills slowly and painfully the one who withholds it, and enlivens the other who turns it on his fellow man. By Kahlil Gibran. You are what you are, where you are, because of what has gone into your mind. You can change what you are and where you are by changing what goes into your mind. By Zig Ziglar. Bye for now, until next time.